Alright, what's up guys? Brian here, and this is my thoughts on the passing of Bobby the Brain Heenan. Um, Bobby Heenan was one of the greatest, if not the greatest managers in pro wrestling history. And I just want to give my thoughts um, about, give, share one of my my memories watching Bobby Heenan on television. So let's just get right into it. First off, my thoughts and prayers are with his family right now during this difficult time. Um, I know for me, growing up watching professional wrestling and watching WWE at the time, or WWF at the time, um, Bobby Heenan, in my opinion, was, like I said, one of the greatest managers, if not the greatest managers in pro wrestling at that time. Um, he had, watching him on TV, uh, he was the kind of he was the kind of manager that fans hated. They wanted to see him get what was coming to him, and I was one of those fans. And every time I'd see Bobby Heenan feuding with somebody like Big Boss Man or Hulk Hogan or somebody like that he was feuding with, as far as managing somebody that was facing those people, those guys, you always knew that somehow those guys were going to get to Bobby Heenan. My one favorite memory that I thought about when I was going to make this video was about his feud with Big Boss Man in the 1990s, where where it started with him making rude remarks about the Big Boss Man's mother. And I remember watching, I believe it was Wrestling Challenge, that program, Wrestling Challenge, that they used to have in the 90s and the 80s. And one episode, Bobby Heenan and Vince McMahon were doing commentary, and Big Boss Man was making his way to the ring, and he happened to look and went towards Bobby Heenan, grabbed him, put one handcuff on Bobby Heenan's wrist, dragged him down to the ring, and handcuffed him to the guardrail, and then threw away the key into the crowd. And I remember watching it, and it was like seeing Bobby Heenan trying to get trying to get somebody to help him out. Like he tried to ask Tugboat for help when Tugboat was making his entrance for a match, and then trying to ask Slick, the Doctor Style Slick, who was managing Power and Glory. He asked him to try to get some help, maybe get a key or something. And then at the end of the show, or near the end of the, like in the middle of the show or near the end of the show, Rick Rude would come out to try to, break the guardrail off or try to get the handcuff off of Bobby Heenan. And basically, they finally got him. They got him out of it, but it was just like, that entire show, it was like Bobby Heenan was just handcuffed to the guardrail, and having to watch, just stand there and not be able to do anything. I thought that was one of the most funniest things I've seen on WWE or WWF at the time. So seeing that, and then I know a lot of other things that with Bobby Heenan had, with him wrestling the Ultimate Warrior, where if he lost, he had to wear a weasel costume. That of course came because of fans would always chant "Weasel" at Bobby Heenan whenever he would be on. As I mentioned, he managed a boatload of WWE Hall of Famers, superstars, guys like Nick Bockwinkel, Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, Ravishing Rick Rude, Ric Flair, when Ric Flair came to WWE at the in I believe it was 1991. He managed Haku, Andre the Giant, Barbarian, who else? The Brainbusters, Tully Blanchard, and Arn Anderson when they came to WWF in, I believe it was '89. Just a slew of superstars that Bobby Heenan managed, and he guided to the top. One of the other things was, he also wrestled in particular occasions. As I mentioned, he wrestled Ultimate Warrior at one point. He wrestled Big Boss Man. I remember WrestleMania 5, where he wrestled the Red Rooster. Some other stuff. So I'm trying to think what else. I know he was always on commentary. That was his. He was a manager, and then he would also be on commentary until I'm trying to think. I think it was '91 when he decided that he wasn't going to be a manager, that he was just going to be a broadcast journalist, as they called him. I also remember when he was on Paul Bearer's funeral parlor. He was actually the one that introduced and showed the old WCW championship when Ric Flair left WCW with the championship, and Bobby Heenan brought it on WWE programming. The big gold belt, not the other one, but the big gold belt. He brought that, he also made it clear that Ric Flair was coming to WWE at that time. And he was on the Paul Bearer's funeral parlor talking about Ric Flair and how everybody's scared of Ric Flair, especially Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper would then come down and start getting into it with Bobby Heenan and saying that he scares Flair, and then would take the belt from Heenan and spit on it. That was another memory I had watching. There was some other ones of Bobby Heenan, like when he would leave WWE in I think either sometime in the 90s, he would leave WWE to go to WCW. And on one of the Clash of the Champions episodes for WCW, they did that whole Clash of Champions deal. He actually swore on TV. I don't remember which one it was. I know that it was during a match that somebody was having. I think it was Brian Pillman or something like that. Grabbed him, and he didn't know what was going. Like, he grabbed him or something like that, or just did something, and Bobby Heenan didn't know what was going on and cursed and got mad on live TV. So that was another thing for Bobby Heenan, and then there was some other stuff. I'm just kind of in shock because I didn't know about it. Didn't know he passed until maybe an hour or so ago, or 2 hours ago. I saw on Facebook that WWE announced it. So it's still a bit of a shock. Like I said, he was one of the greatest, if not the greatest, managers of all time. One of the famous sayings that I remember when Bobby Heenan was on TV, I think it was it was at WrestleMania 6 when after Andre the Giant left the Heenan family after they lost the tag titles to Demolition, Andre the Giant and the Haku. Bobby Heenan would be backstage during an interview with Gene Okerlund, and one of his sayings that he came up with was, "If you don't listen to me, or if you listen to me, you go to the top. If you don't listen to me, you're never heard from again. And that was kind of mainly everybody that Heenan managed wound up going to the top at one point or another. And that's what made him a great manager, because he was the brain, and he knew what it took to get to the top. To get his, he was going to do whatever he had to do to make sure that his men and that the men that he managed won. So, but like I said, I mean, it is sad because the wrestling world lost a great manager, and no one's going to be able to replace Bobby Heenan. So there were some other, he was inducted into the, I think it was the 2004 Hall of Fame, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that. I know he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, where he cried because he wished that Gorilla Monsoon was there. Of course, him and Gorilla Monsoon hosted Primetime Wrestling, and they would always get into it, even though they were friends, on TV, they were always getting into it, not physically, but Heenan and Gorilla would always be arguing about something. So now he gets to join Gorilla in at the pearly gates, and it's and he'll be able to get to reunite with Rick Rude, Mr. Perfect, a lot of the guys that he's managed that have passed on. So, the world, as I mentioned, the world lost a great manager. The wrestling world lost a great person. Bobby Heenan will be missed. My thoughts and prayers are with his family, as I mentioned. With that being said, if you guys have memories of Bobby Heenan, let me know what those are in the comments below. Like I said, my favorite is his feud with Big Boss Man, and that memory of Boss Man during that feud, taking him down to the ring and handcuffing him to the guardrail. That was one of my favorites. And there were some other ones, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. But yeah, if you guys have a favorite memory, let me know what you guys, what those are, what you think those are, or let me know what those are in the comments below. This has been my thoughts and on the passing of Bobby the Brain Heenan, who died today at age 73. As always, I am Brian, and thank you for watching.